Hello my friends, how you doing? It's your buddy Phil here. Today we're going to take a look at communications questions. This is the 7th knowledge area in the series of 10. So far we've covered integration, scope, schedule, cost, quality, and resources. Moving over to number 7, let's jump straight in. Your very first question. You have been hired to lead an agile project that has high visibility. Some very important information needs to be sent out to stakeholders, but you need to decide on the type and format of information needed with an analysis of the value of that information. Which of the following communication options would you choose? So let's take a look at the answers and use process of elimination to disqualify those that are not sensible. A. Frequent, transparent, centralized communication around your schedule. That is not a good option because this is talking about centralized communication, which doesn't work in the world of Agile. In Agile, we use decentralized communication. B says frequent, transparent communication using an information radiator. It's not a bad idea. Let's look at C. Frequent communication using a communication management plan and status reports. That sounds more like predictive or traditional, so it's not the best answer. D, infrequent centralized communication using burn down charts and demos or reviews. So what does it mean? Infrequent means not frequently. That's against the grain of Agile. And then centralized is more like traditional. So the answer in this case, my friends, is B. The best thing is frequent, transparent communication using an information radiator. Next question. Your new firm is going through an agile transformation. You are now in the process of developing an appropriate approach and plan for project communications on your new agile project. The company culture is opposed to large amounts of communication. What should you do to effectively manage communications with this globally dispersed team? Hit the pause button if you need more time. Option A. Use instant messaging, video conferencing, and electronic team boards to help communication gaps. Let's take a look at the other options. A doesn't sound bad at first glance. B, use emails, phone calls, and weekly status meetings to help close communication gaps. This is a less ideal option than A. So I would disqualify B, being that A is better because A has the video conferencing, which gives richer communication. So I'm going to cancel B. Let's see C. Keep company policies intact and avoid frequent messaging, vlogs, and blogs. Again, you can't just blanketly say that those are bad. And saying avoid frequent messaging, well, this is an agile transformation, so you need frequent messaging, right? Avoiding vlogs and blogs is unfounded, so we're going to cancel C. And that leaves us with D. Let's read D. It says, discuss policies with functional heads and find a centralized repository. Again, that word centralized is referring more to an predictive flavor right there. And we generally are not gung-ho on these repositories to manage communications. Communications needs to be spontaneous and frequent in the world of Agile. Remember, it says you're going through an Agile transformation. So D isn't that great. The best option after all was A. Since this is an Agile project, use instant messaging, video conferencing, and electronic team boards to help communication gaps. All right, let's move on to the next question in communications here. And this says you are using traditional methods to manage a project. You just produced a work performance report as an output for all interested stakeholders to review. In which process will this report be created? Use the pause button if you need more time. I'll reveal the answer very shortly. All right, let's take a look at some of the potential options. A, closing the project or phase in the final sprint. A work performance report is not created at the closing. You could have a final report though, but that's not the best option. Also, be aware that this question is trying to throw you off in putting the word sprint. So it's throwing you off, but don't let it. You'll get similar on the PMP exam where you have an agile question with predictive language or predictive question with agile language, making it more hybrid. All right, B, monitoring and controlling the risks of the project. That's not a bad idea because it's a work performance report and you derive these reports in monitoring and controlling. So let's move on and see what else we've got. C, when the project manager is managing the communications. No, that is not when you would create this report, because it just says you just produced a work performance report. And it says in which process will this report be created. So it's not when you're managing the communications. It should have already been done by that point. Remember, you do this as part of monitor and control project work, right? That's where you would create the report, and you could distribute the report as you're managing communications, but you wouldn't create the report as part of that process. So it's a little bit of a tricky one. Let's look at D. Developing the work breakdown structure dictionary. Well, that was done in planning, so it wouldn't be D. So your best option here, my friends, is B. It's monitoring and controlling the risks on the project. C is where you're communicating. B is where you're creating the reports that you may use to communicate. It's a bit of a tricky one. Work performance reports are circulated to project stakeholders through the process called managed communications, but they are created during the monitor and control project work process. Okay, so you gotta understand there's a difference between creating a report versus distributing the report. Managed communications is distributing the report, but creating the report is when you are monitoring and controlling the project as a whole. All right, let's move on. You are working on an agile project and unfortunately you are unable to use webcams. The team is 100% virtual. When conducting meetings with remote participants where there is a loss of facial and body language cues, which of the following would you recommend? Hit the pause button for more time. All right, A, allow one team member to speak for the duration of the meeting to avoid issues. Is that what you would do? One person speaking for the entire meeting? No. Even in traditional, that wouldn't be a good way of doing it. So it wouldn't be A, one person speaking for the entire meeting. B, consider round-robin check-ins to ensure participation and check consensus for decisions. So call in on people around the room. It's not a bad way. Let's look at C. Use firm, rigid, fixed and rigid communication to avoid disorder. Only communicate one way. This is the world of Agile, so that's not going to fly, is it? Let's look at D. D, this should not be a problem if email is the sole communications medium. Highly not advised in the world of Agile. So the best option here, my friends, is to consider round-robin check-ins. And you can find this in the Agile Practice Guide on page 122. It's as simple as it sounds. It's pretty much a lift from the Agile Practice Guide. So page 122, when conducting meetings with remote participants where there's loss of facial and body language cues, consider round-robin check-ins. All right, let's move to our next question. You are using a method which can provide information about the effectiveness of the communication activities. This is achieved by reviewing changes between desired and current engagement and adjusting communications as necessary. What does this best describe? So this is one of those few definition ones. You could get one or two, maybe more, maybe a handful on your exam. So I'll give you some time to think about it. All right. So let's look at one of the key words used in this question. Changes between desired and current, the key word being engagement. So this is really talking not about communication methods. That's push, pull, and interactive. It's not that. It's not about assessing what style to use with a difficult stakeholder. that would be C. It's not that. And it wouldn't be analyzing the communication requirements by looking at the number of channels and the path of communication. That would be D. So your best option here, my friends, is Stakeholder Engagement Assessment Matrix, the SEAM. I talk about this quite a lot. It's one of those things you need to know in stakeholder management. But stakeholder and communications have overlap. So it is important to know that. So this describes the Stakeholder Engagement Assessment Matrix. Find this in PMBOK 7 as well, 466. All right, let's move on to the next one. Your team has been following the PMO recommended communication methods for your Agile project, but stakeholders expressed their displeasure regarding quantities of communication that have been distributed. What should you do next as a project manager? Hit the pause button if you need more time. I'll give you some time to read it. It's a bit of a long one. All right, so let's take a look. What should you do? A, monitor communications and stick to the originally decided upon documentation in order to move the project forward. Well, sticking to the original communications that's not working doesn't make sense, so we'll cancel that. Let's take a look at the next one. Find common ground, areas for improvement based on the organization's needs, and then use experiments and retrospectives to progress. It's not a bad sounding one. Let's take a look at C. C, escalate to the project sponsor and have her tell the stakeholders that this is standard PMO procedure that must be followed. Again, this sounds rather unagile in this question, so we're going to cancel C. Can't be that. And D, monitor the stakeholders more frequently and have a dedicated phone line so they can call you if they have something urgent to discuss. Well, think about that. These folks are saying we got too many communications flying all over the place. So D is not the best option to just say, okay, there's a phone line, call us when you want to talk about something. You need a more solid plan for your project. Okay. So the answer, my friends, is leaning more on option B. It's on page 123 in the Agile Practice Guide. Pretty much a direct lift from there, and it says find common ground, areas for improvement based on the organization's needs, and then use experiments and retrospectives to progress. All right, let's move on. Due to many feedback loops involved in this project, the team spends time in communication planning. Which of the following is a component of the communication management plan? All right, hit the pause button if you need more time. All right. So, my friends, you take a look at the first option, stakeholder communication requirements and glossary of common terminology. Glossary of common terminology, it's not uncommon to have that. Stakeholder communication requirements. It's not uncommon. That's the whole idea, right? Because your plan should factor in the requirements. Let's move to B. Information to be communicated and flowcharts of the information flow. To be quite honest, this is to be expected, and so is this. This is to be expected, and information to be communicated, believe it or not, at a high level, it could very well be part of your communications management plan. Let's take a look at the last one. Escalation processes and reason for distribution of information, right on the money. So all these three are definitely part of your communications management plan. Therefore, the best answer is D. All of the options are components of the communications management plan. I remember this really well because the first two, I've definitely seen something similar on other exams, and those are the ones that typically trip you up. Glossary of common terminology and flowcharts. A lot of folks won't be expecting to see that. All right, let's move on. Okay. Your project first started off with 9 team members, but it has ballooned to 36. Which of the following approaches should you use to effectively manage communications on your Agile project? I'll let you think about it for a bit. All right. 3, 2, and 1. So, taking a look at the problem here, it says started off with 9 team members, which is a normal size in the world of Agile. Ballooned to 36. Wow. That means you got almost the size of almost 4 teams. That's a lot. Now I know Scrum allows for 10, but definitely not 36. So what should you do? The only thing that will help you to cope with that number of individuals, to be able to have an effective sync meeting or effective sync meetings, it won't be the retro, that's too late. It wouldn't just be by using a Kanban board, because you still need to have those dailies, right? And it wouldn't be enterprise resource planning, because we use that at a higher level, not at the team level. And on this Agile project, that is not going to help at this point, right? Detailed communication assessments, again, it's not a bad thing, but it wouldn't be happening here in this Agile world. So the best thing is really a Scrum of Scrums. You can find this in the Agile Practice Guide. Scrum of Scrums, also known as a Meta Scrum, is a technique used when 2 or more Scrum teams consisting of 3 to 9 members each need to coordinate their work instead of one large Scrum team. All right, let's move on. Your team has been having a very rough time communicating and work is slow without any improvement in the teamwork process. What should you do as the project manager? That should say any, not ANT. I'll let you think about it for a bit. I'll make a little tweak for you there. All right, so let's see. Here are your options. Divide the team into smaller team batches and use an issue log to track problems they uncover. Ask the servant leader to help the team learn how to integrate those items. It sounds smart, but what exactly is the problem? Rough time communicating and work is slow. So we have to address both. So we see an issue log to track problems and then asking the servant leader help. Let's keep that in our back pocket and move on. B, capture no more than 3 items to improve at each retrospective. Ask the servant leader to help the team learn how to integrate those items. So there's nothing wrong in integrating items and getting items that need to be worked on, but 3 items, it said no more than 3 items at each retrospective. So typically it's 1 or 2. Not sure about the number 3, but let's come back to that. Let's look at C. Chaos is normal and needs to be expected in Agile environments. Doing anything will only destabilize a team's equilibrium. Keep the process intact. So rough time communicating, no. So we're going to begin to eliminate some. Let's eliminate C and let's look at D. Schwaber's law, try to use no less than 8-week sprints in order to solidify team synergy. The longer the first sprint, the quicker the team will bond. That's not true. So we have a couple of options. You either divide the team into smaller team batches and use an issue log to track problems, because it said work is slow, no improvement, right? So if you want the team to become more efficient, you could split the team into smaller sizes and you could log any issues so that they're resolved by the servant leader. Let's look at B again. Capture no more than 3 items. Again, no more than 3 items. It's very prescriptive, so it's suspicious. And it says add each retrospective. So do you want to wait until the retro before you make improvements? Or do you want to begin to make improvements as much as possible now? Well, that's why B will not be the best one. The best option is A. This can be found in the Agile Practice Guide on page 59. In fact, I recommend reading pages 58 and 59 to give you some clarity. All right, this is the final one in the easy set. You are a project manager working with a very siloed team. Instead of a cross-functional team, communication is very laborious and the pace of work has become very slow. What should you do in a hybrid environment to get things back on track? Choose the best 2 options. All right, let's take a look. Hit the pause button if you need more time. Ask the people who are part of projects to self-organize as cross-functional teams. B, use servant leadership skills to help the managers understand why Agile needs cross-functional teams. To be quite honest, those 2 don't sound bad. C, chaos is normal and needs to be expected in Agile environments. Doing anything will only destabilize teams' equilibrium. No, we need to take action, so we'll disqualify C. D says Sutherland's rule, hybrid environments are unproductive and should be avoided at all costs. That's bogus. So we're left with 2. So think about it. Asking people who are part of the projects to self-organize versus using servant leadership skills to help the managers, because leadership comes from that level, right? Understand why Agile needs cross-functional teams. So being that you're asked to choose the best 2, I believe we've already cut out our answer, right? Even though, depending on the circumstance, A might help more than B, or B might help more than A, but both are important, right? So we want their management to know why cross-functional teams are needed, and then we want them to self-organize. That is one of the best things you could do for a team to get them into the Agile mindset state. So my friends, the best answer here is A and B. Those are the 2 you would select. You can find these on page 59 in the Agile Practice Guide. All right, at this time, we have come to the end of the simple zone. Next, we are going to be moving into the questions of a more situational nature, a little bit more difficult to up the ante for your exam. So let's take a look at what's on the screen here. Here we go. So make it fill the entire screen so that you got good visibility of it. All right, here we go. So it reads, as a project manager in the information technology hardware industry, you are leading a project to implement a new network infrastructure. During the execution phase, you encounter challenges in effectively communicating project updates and progress to stakeholders. What should you do next to improve project communication? I'll let you think about it. Hit the pause button for more time. And let's take a look at the answers now. So, A, assess the communication needs and preferences of the stakeholders to tailor communication strategies accordingly. It's not a bad thing, right? Because it says you're encountering challenges in effectively communicating. B says establish regular project status meetings with stakeholders to provide updates and address any concerns. So it doesn't sound bad. However, when you look closer, it's a little bit suspicious to just come out of the gate and say regular status meetings and then use that to address concerns. Probably what you should do is find out what the needs and preferences of the stakeholders are so that you're really hitting those. So in this case, I would make that no. Collaborate with the project team to develop a comprehensive communication plan. Again, I would say no, because you need to know more information about what the problem is. It says you encounter challenges in effectively communicating project updates and progress. So your best bet is to speak to the people, the stakeholders, and it wouldn't be D either. D is presumptuous. It just says update the plan to reflect the revised communication strategies. That will come later. So the best option here, my friends, is to assess the communication needs and preferences, not to be presumptuous, by establishing regular status meetings. That may not be the answer to the problem. You first of all need to assess needs and preferences. All right, and for that reason, the answer to that one is A. By assessing the communication needs and preferences of the stakeholders to tailor communication strategies accordingly, the project manager can ensure effective and efficient communication, leading to better project understanding and stakeholder engagement. Okay, let's move on. You are a project manager in the legal industry, overseeing a project to implement a new case management system. During the execution phase, you realize that key project information is not effectively shared among team members, resulting in miscommunication and delays. What should you do next to improve project communications? I'll let you think about it. Okay, now let's take a look at the options. So again, stay focused on what the problem is. During the execution phase, you realize that key project information is not effectively shared, and it results in miscommunication delays. That's the key thing. So what should you do? A, establish a centralized project repository for sharing and assessing project documents and information. While that sounds like a good idea, I'm not sure it's the best idea to just have a repository, go into the repository. When it talks about effectively sharing information, it may not just be about pulling information from somewhere. So I would make that red for now. Let's go to B. Conduct regular team meetings to discuss project updates, challenges, and promote open communication. You see, that's the key. That open communication clause and regular team meetings. If there's miscommunication and delays, I believe B is a better candidate to solve the problem more than A. So I'm going to leave B alone. C, collaborate with the project team to develop standardized communication templates and guidelines. Templates and guidelines doesn't mean people are going to use them, and it doesn't mean you'll find out what is wrong with the ones you might have been using before. So that needs to be read. And the final thing that says update the plan is bogus, because you can't do that yet. So your best answer, my friends, is B. Let's take a look. It says, by conducting regular team meetings to discuss project updates, challenges, and promote open communication, the project manager can enhance information sharing, address any concerns or misunderstandings, and foster effective communication within the project team, individuals, and interactions over processes and tools. That's true. So let's read again. As a project manager in the education industry, you're leading a project to develop a new curriculum for an online course. During the planning phase, you realize that the project stakeholders have varying levels of understanding and involvement. What should you do next to improve project communications with the stakeholders? Hit the pause button if you need more time. And now let's analyze the question. Okay. A, conducting stakeholder analysis to identify the communication preferences, level of involvement and information needs. That's not a bad thing. It says varying levels of understanding and involvement. So we need to understand the levels. Where are the levels? Are they high levels, low levels, medium levels? That's not a bad thing. B says establish regular communication channels with stakeholders to provide updates and address their concerns. Well, the truth is that not every stakeholder has the same concerns and the same interest, and that's okay. So B is presumptuous, thinking that we need to communicate regularly, right, with every single one of these stakeholders. So I would make this a red. C, collaborate with the project team to develop clear and concise project status reports for the stakeholders. Again, this is very presumptuous, going into status reports. No one said that was the problem. So we're going to make that red. And D is presumptuous because we haven't even got the solution and it's saying update the plan. So the best answer here, my friends, is A. By conducting stakeholder analysis to identify the communication preferences, level of involvement, and information needs, the project manager can tailor communication strategies and messages to effectively engage stakeholders and ensure they receive the necessary information to support the project's success. All right, let's go to, I believe that's it. I thought there was one more, but it looks like we are done for this section. So that's that for this section. We have just one more question that we'll take a look at today, and that's the spinner. Let's take a look at the spinner. Here we go. Let's go to spinner. And this is where I show a question that is so verbose and a little bit far out compared to the usual size you would expect. So let's take a look. All right. This is a long one. Company It's a Go authorized a multi-million-dollar project after COVID ended to get their 500,000 workers on a new work authorization project platform. The first project manager had conflict with management due to interpersonal issues and resigned. It's a Go just hired a new project manager to replace the former PM. The new project manager is very capable in scheduling, budgeting, and management, but weak in overall administration and procurement management. What should the new project manager do to start guiding the team toward project success? A, review the project charter to identify goals and deliverables. B, adjust the project schedule to add new activity related to the knowledge transfer process. C, consult the project log for notes on procurement and sellers. And D, revisit the project budget to determine if extra time is required. All right, 3, 2, and 1. Hit that pause button if you need more time to think about it. The best answer to this, my friends, is what you would do on any project, whether you're coming in midway or in the beginning. You need a project charter. So you would need to review the project charter to identify goals and deliverables. That would be your best bet. All right. And with that, my friends, we have come to the end of this rather lengthy session on communications management. Taking a look at a fair amount of questions and try to break down the logic and the rationale. So thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and go on down to the site. It's Praizion.com. I got various videos and material that can help you in your prep. You take care and all the very best. Bye for now.